What if someone dared you to collect and eat all your fingernail clippings from the past year? Would you do it? Hopefully you wouldn't, because it's disgusting, isn't it? It's also a bit ridiculous because it's not like your fingernails are tasty or beneficial to your health. But what if I told you that in Vietnam, this was actually happening? Okay, I must first admit it is in a different form. It's in the form of Rhino Horn. Maybe that sounds familiar to you. Rhino Horn is very popular, and Vietnam is one of a few major consumers. And while it would be nice if the story of the rhino wasn't racing towards extinction, as it seems many species are, rhinos are in fact endangered because of humans. This is because the high demand for rhino horn in various countries is leading to illegal rhino poaching around the world. So why is rhino horn so popular? This is because rhino horn is believed to have healing properties, from treating the common achoo, cold to even cancer by many traditional medicinal practices. But much to people's dismay, that is simply not true. Rhino horn is composed of keratin, which is a type of protein, and it's the same protein that humans make in the form of, you guessed it, fingernails. In other words, when people consume rhino horn, it's basically just the same thing as eating your nails. Yuck. But the truth is, no matter how many people I talk to about this, no matter how many times I compare rhino horn to my fingernails, no matter how many times I try to tell people to understand that the myths surrounding rhino horn are false, the concern given to the issue remains low, and the demand for rhino horn remains high in Vietnam. This may be because the consumer base of rhino horn is not educated enough to realize that the powers of rhino horn are false, but the larger majority of people are those who are indeed aware of the problems, but do not feel the need to care enough for the issue. I even remember once posing the possibility of rhino extinction to someone who, number one, had friends who could possibly become a potential rhino horn buyer, but number two, also understood the problems associated with rhino horn. And he told me that the single biggest thing he would be worried about would be the potential price increase of rhino horn. But the truth is, even I was guilty of not giving the issue much attention too in the beginning. I'm a Korean student who goes to an international school in Vietnam, and I don't know anyone who actually buys rhino horn. So when I was first introduced to the issue, I didn't really think it was very relevant to me. I didn't think that the issue was happening anywhere near me, and the rhinos weren't even in Vietnam. I mean, the majority of rhinos are even on a different continent. Why did I have to care about an animal so far away from me when I could care about the endangered pygmy lorises of Vietnam or the almost toxic air pollution of Hanoi? I remember this thought lingering with me throughout my freshman year in high school, and even to the trip to South Africa I won from a wild rhino competition hosted by the Wilderness Foundation that appointed me as one of their wild rhino youth ambassadors. And when I arrived in Durban, South Africa, I found the reason why we needed to care. First, in South Africa, I was able to spend time in the wilderness and see the wild rhinos in person, and that itself was a life-changing experience. I would literally sleep under the stars every night and fall asleep to the sounds of hyenas scouring for food in the distance. But the most fascinating was how animals interacted with each other. Rhinos, for instance, would create paths while casually moving around, and smaller animals like myself and my other fellow competition winners could use those paths to navigate. And this reliance we gained towards the rhinos during the trip gave me insight to the importance of rhinos in their natural habitat. But more importantly, I found empathy for the rhinos. Actually, both empathy and sympathy. During the trip, we had a seminar where we were introduced to the current situation, and there was a wildlife veterinarian who showed us the conditions that rhinos were put into for their horns. First, I would like to mention that this may be graphic. What the poachers do is they cut off the horns of the rhinos and leave them to die in the wild. And it would have been so much better if they only cut parts of the horns that they could see. But in order to earn the most money possible, they cut into the skin and dig out the horn from the rhinos' faces. The rhinos are then left bleeding in the wild, in pain and unarmed. The vet even let us hear a clip of a rhino whimpering for help after getting attacked. And the hopeless sound of an animal I had seen to be so powerful and wonderful in the wild brought tears to my eyes throughout the seminar. I was disgusted by what we as a society were doing. But I was also reminded about the health related to the rhinos. As aforementioned, I was already familiar with how people consumed rhino horn thinking that it could cure cancer and other illnesses, but I had only condemned them and thought of it as ridiculous. But during the trip to the wild, there was a competition winner who shared their experience with rhino horn. The winner's mother was sick, and they had first relied on traditional and herbal medicine. This included consuming a powder that was supposed to cure the disease, rhino horn powder. But sad story short, it had no effect, and she had eventually passed away. They had tried to take her to a hospital, but it was too late to save her. I was shocked. I ridiculed people for believing such myths, but I had been so gratefully ignorant. The rhino horn belief is a belief that is rooted into the tradition and culture of Vietnam. It was natural that people believed in the powers of rhino horn. In other words, I was blaming the wrong people. The myth was giving false hope to everyone that could result in serious consequences, and the ones that were still spreading it even today were not the ones who were seeking for treatments, it was the ones who were giving it, the professionals, the traditional practices, the doctors, and many more who knew better. They were the ones who were giving false hope, and in return hurting not just the rhinos, but the patients as well. It turned out that my feelings of detachment with the issue was caused because I had only thought of the rhino horn problem as another environmental issue that we needed to solve. Except it wasn't just that. This was a human problem, an issue that affected all of us. This change in perspective changed my relationship to the issue. Before, as much as I really cared for the rhinos, whenever someone asked me about rhino horn, I felt easily embarrassed, as if I was put on the spot. But now, I have conversations with people about my trip to South Africa. I support my fellow Wild Rhino Youth ambassadors on social media, and I share videos, posters, and news articles on rhino poaching with the hashtag #BuyNoRhino. I hope you get the subtle pun there. I do speeches at school about rhino poaching, and I even did a school project on rhinos. I understand that everyone has different interests, different passions, and different things that appeal to them. So I don't want to be forcing anyone here to start making proactive contributions to the rhino horn problem. And I understand that most people here will probably not buy rhino horn, and actually, like myself, do not know anyone who would buy rhino horn. But this issue is one where knowledge is still key. I hope that the more you start becoming aware of the rhino horn issue as an issue that is close to you, the issue becomes less of just one of those issues that exist in the world. As something that's actually relevant to us, I hope that the rhino horn problem becomes something that you feel is important enough to be up for discussion here, especially in Vietnam. The Javan rhinos of Vietnam went extinct 10 years ago. Most people don't even realize Vietnam had rhinos. The last Javan rhino of Vietnam died because someone poached it. I truly hope that we aren't too late to save the ones that still reside in the wild. So going back to the beginning, what if someone dared you to collect and eat all your fingernail clippings from the past year? Would you do it? And what if you heard someone talking about rhino horn? And what if instead of just being a bystander, you took action, talked to them about the issue, convinced them to make the right decision? People say that words can plant gardens or burn whole forests down. What will you do with your words? Thank you.